Oh, no, I understand. Hey, everybody. We're a little we're a little late. I got to figure out. I'm doing this a little differently than I normally do it. Let's see. How do I find the link to share this link on Facebook? Oh, here it is. Okay, if you're watching this, let us know that you're watching this so you can hear and see us, because I'm doing this a different way than I normally do it. I'm also
like it posted.
going. It did? Okay,
Yep.
I will be right back.
Hi, everyone. Let us know if you're here. It's very, very, very hot. Had an extreme heat warning for like 3 or 4 days now. Yet I hear some parts of the country are having snow. Hi, Susan. Hi, Charlotte. It is gross out, yes. Snow would be great. I agree. Just need to travel to the snow. All right. Anybody else? If you're here, let us know you can hear us.
Snow would be great. Snow is a little bit of an extreme wish.
I mean, it would be disturbing, but.
Okay. Welcome to
Hi,
NAMA,
Melissa.
guys. Hope everyone's doing well. What news do we have, Natalie?
I don't know. I'm finally going to be home for more than a week at a time.
Yeah, Natalie's actually home for a weekend. We've got a lot of questions from you guys, so that's nice.
Yeah, a lot of great stuff. I'm looking at them trying to make sure I'm not missing
My
anything.
schedule's starting to get booked into the fall. So
You mean for like seminars and
yeah,
stuff?
for seminars and things like that. We're a little late on our class schedules for July, so hopefully that should go out by the weekend. I'm going to work on it after my class tonight. What else? Oh, I've got news. Minnow did her first elite trial, and she did very well. I'm very proud of her.
She did.
Maggie did her first NW1 trial. She also did very well. She got a title. Catfish tried NW2 again, and he'd rather chase flies than play nose work in the summer. So I got the message from him.
Well, and you're underselling Minnow a bit. She got first place overall and pronounced overall with some other speed ribbons. And you posted both of their videos, at least as many
I
as
posted
you have,
the videos publicly
on your Facebook page.
Yes,
So
and they're on
wants to
YouTube.
look at those.
And as you can hear, we've got a Borden fan who's very upset that he's in the crate.
Siberian Husky.
Yes. You can just read them from Facebook. That's easier than copy and pasting them. Because your face out of the screen for the whole live stream.
But I
don't think that's worth it.
Besides, it's done now, so
okay.
Now I'm trying to help people find the thing. I still won't be looking at them if I'm trying to tell people how to find us. I will be done in just a minute.
Okay, people are trying to find the live stream, so
yeah,
we're giving them a second to find it. If you guys are interested in another intro class, let us know, because I've got a couple requests, but I don't know how much intro we have.
interest.
Mhm.
You said how much intro we have.
Okay, should we get into the questions?
Sure.
Okay, question 1. That puppy is very upset, and I know that YouTube doesn't have noise cancellation.
No.
So, yeah. As my dog gets improved understanding of her job in the search, I've noticed how strongly my own body language affects her. How do I get better at this? Most notably, if I linger near a container or other object, she will guess and alert on it. The traffic jam is hardest in a multi-hide container search, where I reward and then stand up and want to move on. Can you help on some tips on managing this? The first thing I would say is that the question kind of contradicts itself. If the dog understands their job, then they wouldn't be paying as much attention. What that tells me is the dog has confusion about what their job is and is trying to figure out what your job is.
Yeah, thinks you may be a source of information in the search.
The main thing I have to say to you is don't tiptoe around the dog. Don't try to handle correctly. Don't try to do it right. That's not advice for a trial necessarily. It's advice for training the dog. In order to train the dog properly, you've got to just continue handling however you want to. And when the dog stops and does the falls or looks at you or something, just ignore them. Just flat out ignore them.
Yeah, and another way I would say that is you have to actually intentionally do bad handler drills where you're stopping all over the place, where you're presenting areas, where you're doing strange things, so that the dog no longer thinks that that's a reliable cue from you.
Yeah. I'm going to give him, you want to give him a chew?
Yep. And I'm also going to put a blanket in front of him.
Yeah. So yeah, bad handler game is a staple of our curriculum. You'll find it in almost every course we offer. It's just a basic drill. And you should be doing a lot of that. And what that, what could look like for you, if you're talking, like you're seeing it in containers. One, that's a big problem. That's not going to get better. It's going to get worse. So you should be stopping at every single container until the dog starts ignoring you about that kind of thing.
Takes you to the right container.
Exactly. Multi-hide container search. I would say if you're, I'm assuming you're not picking up the hides. If you are picking up the hides, if you're not picking up the hides, one, you should be picking up the hides. If you're in a class or workshop setting, you're not going to be able to pick up the hides probably. So you're just going to have to go with the flow there and do whatever your instructor says. But in your own training, you should be picking up the hides. That pretty much guarantees that your dog is going to move on because there's nothing left there for them. But that's my main tips. And I would go back to some basic hunt drive drills, either the tin toss game, week 1 of either the intro or the continuing nose work series. If you haven't seen those are contained within our foundation and advanced foundation courses. Any of those drills that are labeled hunt drive, those are the drills that I would recommend for you to help build this idea of just hunting. And that's going to create the essential framework for you to be able to do bad handler game properly.
I also think you may need to go through the progression of teaching a dog how to move on, both when hides are down and when they're picked up. And I think you have that laid out in the Mastering Multiple Hides course. And you may have done that in some of the classes. Sometimes dogs just need to go back through that so they understand that it's their job to take you on to the next thing versus waiting for you. And I don't know if you've been trialing a lot, but sometimes handlers will, for whatever reason, end up doing a lot of moving on themselves, and then the dog just gets used to that.
Well, and I think if you have been going through our Mastering Multiple Hides curriculum, something my students can sometimes get stuck on is once you graduate to that point where you're not picking up hides, people think, oh, that's where we are. And no, where you are is always picking up hides. And then you occasionally don't pick up the hides for a specific reason.
Yeah. We pick up hides regularly for our elite and summit trialing dogs.
Yes. Almost always. Okay.
All right. Next question.
Yeah.
All right. I'll read from your screen.
I have so many questions, but here are two. With someone that doesn't have anyone to train with, going solo, as in no buildings. Also, sorry, can you read it?
Yeah. Two questions. So someone who doesn't have anyone to train in, so you don't have any buildings that you have access to. What can I do to get someone to let me use one, I think is what it says. And then what would be your suggestion for improving our performance in I saw them in Detective yesterday. How often do you train maintenance, so to say, don't want burnout? So we'll start with the first one.
Access to interiors.
Often, okay. Ask a friend if you can bring your dog over and use their space, even a garage. Use your own house if you aren't already.
There are quite a few public use interiors that you can use. Places like Home Depot, PetSmart, Tractor Supply. These places allow dogs in them. And if you're going there to shop anyways, bring your dog along, take some hides, and run hides in there.
And of course, be careful if it's really busy with other dogs and things like that.
Yeah, don't let your dog be destructive or obnoxious or anything like that. Yeah. But we train at places like this and we buy things, and so people don't seem to mind.
Yeah. And if you can get someone to go with you, then they can put a hide down and then you can run it, and it doesn't have to be as involved in terms of setting an entire thing and waiting.
But a tier up from this is to look up pet-friendly Airbnbs and hotels and spending that extra money. Like, it's worth it. It's a trial entry. And if you're going to go to a trial and not train interiors, you're burning a trial entry. You might as well spend that trial entry and rent an Airbnb for a day, or take a little mini vacation, go to an Airbnb, do a ton of searches in it, and then you got some practice in a brand new.
Every time that either of us travel, we use the room or house that we rent. And I know someone who just locally in her area, she rents dog-friendly Airbnbs. She sets a search at night and runs it in the morning some of the time, or, set something and run it in the evening, set something different, run it in the morning. If you don't necessarily want to stay there. Also, depending on where you are, the parks near us have a lot of pretty clean bathrooms that don't tend to be overly busy. Those are great. And often, for some dogs, there's some confidence to going in those kinds of spaces too.
Yes.
And, even if they're small, some of them aren't, some of them are pretty big, but even if they're small, just the chance to go in and work an interior with a weird airflow is good.
Yeah. And then another tier up is finding workshops. And I don't know where you live. Maybe you're truly too remote to go to these places, but I assume you're doing nose work. So I assume you're competing. So you're traveling for competitions, probably the clubs putting on competitions, probably either host classes or workshops.
Mm-hmm.
If you live remote, put out the extra effort and go to those workshops, attend a class here and there, drop into a class if you can, or do a private lesson. And explicitly ask, I want to work interiors.
Yeah.
And so if they say, okay, we can do interiors, then great. And if not, then you can't. But
we used to tell our students when we lived in LA, where there were just loads and loads and loads of instructors, just see if you can go around and do a lesson or a class and get to use everybody's different interior.
Absolutely.
Maintenance. I think one thing that's really important is that after every trial recovery.
Yeah. Well, but I don't know what you mean by maintenance here. I don't know what distinction you're making between maintenance training and normal training,
or maintenance versus trialing.
Yeah.
Or just training at all, maybe.
Training generally. Yeah. Versus doing just trials. Yeah. And you're connecting that to burnout. I want to know how you're connecting that in your mind.
Is this?
Are you thinking training is going to burn out your dog, or you think not training is going to burn out your dog? I'm curious.
Yeah. And, if someone's training 5 times a week, that may work for some dogs, and that may be way, way too much for some dogs. Whereas training once a week or less may not be enough for some dogs to stay tuned up for trials. So there's a lot that's individual to a dog. But I do want to, I already said it, but I want to reemphasize that recovery training after trial is paramount if you're trialing.
Yes, trial recovery. We did a NAMA about that. Do you remember when it was?
Months ago?
Yeah, it's on I believe it's on the website. If it's not on the website, I'm going to get it uploaded soon. We get all of our trial recovery drills there. So you can see, and I recommend that you do that after every single trial. And then That's what I would consider if I have maintenance training. That's what I would consider maintenance. And honestly, those kinds of exercises are what I'm doing most of the time, anyways.
Yeah, I mean, I think very connected to that is like making sure you're relayering foundation regularly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and if you don't have a construct for that, we have our 4 pillars construct of foundation maintenance.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's see. Was there another? Did I get all that? Okay, performance and detective. I'm going to meet with you later this week. So because that would be probably very, very specific to you, I'm not going to say stuff that's super specific. I think a very general thing I would say about detective is that foundation maintenance is incredibly important. Handling and stress management is incredibly important. And also understanding that, not every detective is going to go well. It's an all or nothing game. And so don't overweight the trials that don't go well. Learn from them, but it's not a time to like redo your whole training construct or anything like that.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest mistakes people make is like completely restructuring their training program every time they make some little error. And it's like, no, small adjustments, just keep training. And sometimes major adjustments are necessary. And we deal with a lot of those people and we try to help guide them. But if you're going to make a major restructuring, it should only be under the guidance of a trainer you trust.
Yeah.
Okay. Next. Another one with 2 questions. First question is about making best use of warm-up boxes in a trial. This is a contentious one for us. I've only been to a couple of AKC trials and I've been unsure about how best to utilize them, especially considering that they can be placed in ways that seem counter to how I would train. In one example, the odor boxes were placed in the staging area. So basically, one would have to run the dog on a box, then wait right next to it. Didn't seem like a great idea to me. In another trial, all boxes were hot boxes. Oh my.
So if you don't know, Michael, because I don't know how they did the warm-up box at the AKC trial you went to, they tend to have a birch, an anise, a clove, and a cypress hot box, all within 10 feet of each other, and then often they'll also have a couple of cold ones. It's excessive and ridiculous.
Why? Oh my goodness! I had no idea. I apologize, guys. This is crazy to me. This is insanity.
What I think they should do is 1. And they should probably just do birch.
I would honestly, and for you, especially because I know you, but this is a general one. Don't do them. Just don't. It's not necessary. Do you really think your dog doesn't understand? And if your dog benefits from a warm up on your way to the trial, stop at a park and do your warm up search yourself the way you want to do it there. Don't do the gross warm up boxes that you don't know are right. I have a couple. So I have one experience in AKC doing the warm-up boxes. Okay. And actually I didn't do the warm-up boxes. I was watching the warm-up boxes. And I watched this competitor go up and down the warm-up boxes. This one didn't have all the different odors. But anyways, she's going up and down the odors and the dog's falsing on this one and she's pulling the dog off and trying to run. And the dog goes to the correct one and the dog rewards. And I noticed one box the dog is falsing on has a smiley face on it, and the one that she's rewarding has an X on it. Okay. And so I'm just watching and I'm observing. And I see the volunteer come out and I say, hey, this one has an X, that one has a smiley. Which one is the right one? And says, oh, I don't know. And I was like, is it okay if I look to see what's in them? And she's like, yeah, okay. And so I go over, I open, and the person who had been running these boxes very frustratedly is standing right over there. And so I opened them both, and they both have odor in them. Okay. And she had just been correcting her dog off of odor this whole time. Now, she should have been thinking about that before she had run the dog. But she wasn't. She was stressed, whatever.
Use them, know which one is hot.
So I closed them back up, and I was like, oh, they both have odor. Ha, ha, ha. And I walk away, and I could see the other competitor was just like completely horrified. Yeah.
That's awful.
Just avoid the warm boxes. And if they're in the staging area, I know this is counter. Just put the dog in a sit and ignore them. I know that seems weird, but to me, it's no different than having the odor kit right by them or picking up the hides and having them in your pocket. To me, it's like, yep, there's odor there. You're correct, dog, and I'm not going to let you work them. It is not going to harm your dog in any way.
It might make them even more dry when you get to the search. So one thing that's a little different from what Michael is saying, When I first ran Hazel in her first ORT, she was very stressed about going to new locations. And now we had like access to the warm-up boxes, just us. Nobody else was anywhere nearby on our way into the search. And when she saw them and I let her go and run, she was like, there was this huge light bulb of like, oh my gosh, now I understand what we're doing at this strange place with all these people and dogs and all that. And so I don't think it was a bad thing for her to encounter them there, but the way that you're describing and warm-up boxes in general, she's the only dog that I ever felt that way about.
Yeah.
My first nose work dog would always act like she'd never done nose work before every time we went to the warm-up boxes. And then I just started doing them as like a superstitious behavior that we would go and work the warm-up boxes. She would do nothing, and then we go and have a good search.
In the music world, we say bad rehearsal, good performance.
Yeah. But most of the time I would rather do warm up a different way if I feel that I need to, which once the dog is at a certain point and they understand the routine that goes into the morning of a trial, the routine of being at the trial and all that, plus whatever odor they're catching, in the parking lot and walking by the warm boxes and all that. I don't think that they are confused about why they're there.
I walk my dog past those because I don't run the warm boxes. I walk them past regularly, and the dogs are like, "Oh, there's odor there," and I'm like, "Yep, I know." And we just walk by, and it's no big deal. Let me give you, to counterbalance this a little bit, some times that I did use the warm boxes and why. So I just competed with Maggie. I mentioned that at the beginning. I ran the warm up boxes with her at first. Maggie is a dog. She's a bulldog. She's a dog that has a lot of environmental issues. She's afraid of flooring. She's afraid of new locations. She can be afraid of sudden changes, things like that. And she's recovering from ACL surgery. She has done nothing for a month.
Longer than that, like 2 months.
Like 2 months, she has come out of her crate, pottied, and gone back to her crate, and that is like it.
And increasing recovery and all that. Like she's doing
but
quite
she's
well.
doing nothing.
But she's not doing nose work.
She's doing nothing. Okay. So I did the warm boxes to see, hey, like, you remember this at all? So I did that for her. I also ran the warm-up boxes with her on her ORTs when she was younger. And I do often recommend this to my students at ORTs. This is your first competition. Run them. Just run them once. And then I give some caveats. No, your dog is probably going to act like they've never done nose work before. Don't let that bother you. Wait for them to get to the odor. Don't point it out to them. When they get there, pay them. And then just move on and don't think about it again. But for a lot of dogs who's their ORT, for a lot of those dogs, they're just not used to going to so many new locations, especially a new location with so many other dogs and distractions. And so that's the value of doing the ORT warm-up boxes. And I know this is AKC novice, so you could make an equivalency kind of comment there, and that might be true. But in your case, because I know your dog and I know you, skip them. You don't need them.
Yeah, and I think that one of the mistakes people make is that they tend to not like how the dog did it the first time, so they do it again and again and again. Or like when you have all 4 odors out, they do one, they do the next one, they do the next one, they do the next one, maybe they go back and do another one.
Yeah.
And it's too much patterning in that moment, especially with how much slobber is all over those boxes.
Yeah, and if you can do the warm-up boxes early before the 5 box matchers get to it and turn it into a crater in the ground, do that.
Yes. And before they're soaked in slobber and treats and all that stuff.
Okay. Second question. When would you introduce Cypress to a dog that's already on the other 3 odors?
In some
doesn't matter.
ways,
Doesn't matter.
I was going to say, in some ways it doesn't matter. On the other hand, I don't tend to bother introducing it early. Like maybe once they're, past advanced or something.
Feel free to. That's another way to answer it. Do it whenever you want. I'll tell you this. When AKC first came out, and they added Cypress to the list, we put Cypress out in our classes. We didn't even tell our students, and the dogs acted like they had been trained on it their whole lives.
Yeah, no, that doesn't always happen.
No.
We actually have another question related to the opposite of that later. And in some ways, I don't really want the dog to just alert on whatever essential oil happens to be in the environment, because sometimes there's,
you can do proofing off of that, and then you'd have to teach Cypress. But since we know that dogs are going to alert on other essential oils if they appear in the environment, you might as well capitalize on that to expose them to the other odors that you want early. So you might as well throw her on odor now once or twice just to get it done with.
Because what you don't want, which ties into the next question about this, is to have years and years and years of payment repetition on the other three
Birch,
odors, and then you add Cypress, and then a couple months later you go to your first, master search, and it happens to be out, and the dog doesn't prioritize it because they want to go to the ones that have paid for so much longer. So
yes. Do you want to read that other one that's related?
yes. Having trouble with a few dogs in the household who don't seem to be picking up Cypress. Is this odor uniquely challenging? These two dogs specifically are ready to move into master, but don't seem to be making the association. So I would guess that has partially to do with how long they've been on the other odors. And it may be that they're not, I don't know how you're introducing it.
Exactly. Are you just throwing them into normal searches? Are you doing container searches? Are you pairing?
Yeah.
How much are you pairing? Are they in multiple hide searches with other odors out there?
Mm-hmm.
These are all important questions that you would need to assess.
Yeah, because when I introduced Icy to Cypress, sorry, that dog is really distracting me.
Let me see if I can get him to quiet down.
I gave him 3 different chews. I took her to a class where I had promised the students that we were going to focus on Cypress. And so I only set Cypress hides, and I introduced Icy to Cypress in the parking lot of the class because I had forgotten to introduce it to her before. And I just did like 3 to 5 repetitions of paired Cypress and then let her go to it and paid her real quick. And she had zero problem at all with any of the hides in the class. Now that's a sample size of 1 dog. In that example, but what I would do is only Cypress for 2 weeks to a month. And after 2 weeks you could test it, and then you could do another 2 weeks if you need to. But just get the payment repetitions in with that being your only option. And, maybe start paired for a couple of rounds, but I would bet if it's the only thing that they'll pretty quickly it'll catch up to speed for them.
Absolutely. Now, I don't know. Yeah, I think everything you said is correct, and I think you should just make sure everything is as simple as possible, as straightforward, single hide, and I bet you they would do it. I would love to see it too if you want to post a video.
Yeah. There's someone in the group who tried for Clove like 3 or 4 times, I think. Sorry if I'm remembering that incorrectly. And just wasn't passing Clove. We did a private lesson. You could see the dog was not prioritizing Clove the way it was prioritizing everything else. So I said, okay, do a month. Like she'd already done short spurts of just Clove. So do a month of, I think I said, it was either 2 weeks or a month, but just Clove. And then he finally passed after it was just really overweighted that was important.
Okay, next.
Yeah.
How do you get your dog over peeing in the trial area? As I watched my video from yesterday, I realized my dog wasn't even searching. She was smelling other marked areas. I should have realized that, but I didn't. 10 seconds in and boom, we were out.
Well, you didn't have very long to figure it out either.
No, it doesn't sound like it. Yeah. So there's a couple things. And so I was at this trial. This is the NW1 that Maggie passed. And there's a couple things that go into that. I'll start kind of from most important down to kind of the lesser ones. Most important, I would say, is making sure that the dog's hunt drive is to the max. And if you look at our milestone chart from the beginning, this is dogs pre-odor. What we're recommending that they do is that they're able to do a 3-minute search blank in a potty area. Like, this is an important objective for us. And the way we build that is by building lots of hunt drive in these types of areas. So I say search, and the dog runs around. They're not thinking about pee. And if they are thinking about pee, we are intervening. Mm-hmm. Okay. So we want to make sure their hunt drive is very, very, very high. Their odor obedience is very, very high. So that's number 1. Number 2 is that we make sure that the dog understands there is a consequence for peeing when they're doing a search. And this is also where the change of equipment is really important, whether it's a collar or a harness. If you put the dog's nose work harness or collar on and you potty them in it, there's your problem right there. You're making a huge mistake. And I still see tons and tons of people. They have the harness on all day long and they're pottying the dog in the harness. Like, that's the one rule, is don't pee.
Yeah.
And so they can't pee in that
And
equipment.
at that point, it's like, what does the equipment even mean if it's on all the time?
Exactly. It just all it is saying we're at a nose work trial, which I can tell you the dog already knew.
Yeah, I think it's really, really important to set things up to have the conversation with the dog about what's allowed, what's not allowed in the equipment, because dogs don't inherently know they're not allowed to pee while they're searching. That's not a normal component of canine life. So we have to let them know that if you go to the bathroom when you're in a search area, when I've told you that you're searching, the game ends.
Yeah.
And they need whatever number of repetitions that dog needs to understand that concept.
And this is in our foundation or advanced foundation course. I think it's foundation. And you can see us teach all of these exercises in a video called Crittering. So if you are interested in seeing what that looks like, there it is. The third thing about yesterday in particular is on days where the weather is hotter than normal, especially.
And it was really hot.
It was really hot. And my dogs are used to it. I think that one of the reasons that Minnow and Maggie were so successful is because we're outside in the heat every day training. And a lot of people in the heat, they're staying inside in the air conditioning and they're not stressing their dog in the heat. And when the dog does get stressed in the heat, guess what? They drink more water. They have to pee more frequently. And even if you're potting them, they're still needing to pee more frequently. And so if your dog is not heat tolerant because you're not conditioning them to the heat by stressing them in that environment, that's what I would say is a third component. So component 1, solid hunt drive and odor obedience. Component 2, clear penalties for peeing.
And the right setup.
And the third is heat tolerance so that they don't need to pee quite so frequently.
Yeah. And, she probably was just marking. But still, there are dogs who pee a lot more when it's hot outside.
Most dogs. There were a lot of pees in that search too. So,
after just getting our NW1 over the weekend, after just getting our NW2 over the weekend, I wanted to know if you had some training tips on exercises that will be helpful in starting to prepare us for NW3.
I think one of the first things I would say is that, and this is kind of a comment generally to anybody thinking about this, is you should be already training for the NW3 before you do your NW2. So if you're not already exposing yourself to these concepts of unknown searches, of blank searches, which is the only thing that's new about NW3, if you're not already exposing yourself to that, then you shouldn't, in my opinion, you shouldn't be doing NW2.
And the only real difference,
and I know you are, but it's a general thing. Go on.
The real difference between NW2 and NW3 is the unknown number, which you already have exposure to because you have an older dog who already passed NW3. Yes. But that's really the big thing that makes NW3 hard on the dog as well, because we're hemming and hawing and taking the dog around.
We usually stay longer in searches, so there's more endurance and there's also more decisions the dog has to make.
Yeah, and they have to have the stamina and clarity to not do something confusing that makes you call a false alert.
Yes.
And then you have to have the stress management to not keep the dog in forever and to not call false alerts.
Yes.
And I think, again, we already said this, but you just had a trial. You actually just had a couple different trials. So make sure you're doing your trial recovery. So going back to foundation, making sure that the clarity of the criteria in a search is there. And probably largely starting to work on a lot of that stamina stuff, both for you and the dog.
Absolutely. Now, specifically for you, what would I say that you need to? One, I guess this isn't going to help you either, but the leap from NW1 to 2, that's the leap. You've already made that leap. Just go and start doing NW3. If you did an NW2, you're ready for NW3, in my opinion.
And as I said to you when you have asked me about trial readiness before, I don't really believe in trial readiness as a concept. I believe you have to go and try the level, find the holes, and then fill the holes. And then trial, and then find more holes or other holes.
Yes.
And just keep in that process. And in the process, the dog gets better, the handler gets better, and you get some titles as you go.
Mm-hmm.
And she's still, relatively novice within nose work. And you're still working on some of her concerns about the world. So continuing to work on all of that and giving her more exposure to different kinds of odor problems, stuff along the lines of the Mastering Multiple Hides stuff you've been doing, getting to more different locations, and all that usual stuff.
Okay.
How do you work through extreme distraction? I was at an elite trial on Saturday, and for whatever reason, my dog was completely disengaged from the minute I stepped over the start line in an exterior. It was a 6-minute search that ended up having 6 hides, and we only found 2, both with soft alerts. He was in odor and actually sniffed 3 of the hides we missed, but just walked off and didn't commit. He was so distracted and disengaged, maybe a little fearful. I had no idea what to do since he's never done this before. Tried restarting him, but that didn't work. Should I have just called finish and left? Any other ideas on how to get engagement back? And we have a related question that says, can you motivate a dog when he or she does not hunt during a search?
I think asking about how to get engagement back during a search you're out at a trial, that's a Hail Mary. Do what you get, do what you want, do what you can do what you got to do. But yeah, it's, you fix it in training. That's the same thing. Can you motivate a dog when he or she does not hunt during a search? Not, in my opinion, not during a search. That's a training drill. You got to go back to training and build hunt drive. And you got to keep building hunt drive and build it and build and build it until it's 100% solid.
Yeah. And, often restarting a dog works, but not if they have something that's freaking them out or seriously distracting them. I had a search with Hazel at Elite where there were cows on the other side of the fence. And we got the search for the cows were the closest. We got 2 out of 4 hides just because I happened to swing her into a hide and call it, and happened to swing her into another hide and call it. But most of her brain was thinking about those cows, and those were basically accidents. And so then the question for me was, what do I need or want to do to work on that particular distraction? And I decided for that particular distraction, I wasn't going to worry about it, because how often are cows on the other side of the fence, and she's bred for cow work. But in your case, there may be some things, you haven't seen it before. But if you have any ideas of what may have been bothering him, then you can work on that. If you have it in retrospect or through your videos or something.
Yeah. And I think it really depends, your question, on, was he distracted or was he fearful? And what was he distracted by, or what was he fearful of? All these things are.
Yeah. The specifics do matter.
Yes. The specifics do matter. So sometimes just calling finish and leaving, sometimes that's the best thing to do.
Yeah. Especially if it makes the dog feel heard.
But I think your second half of this question, which Natalie didn't read.
Yeah, I was going to get to that next.
Can you talk about the ask for info option NSCSW offers and how it's scored? We can talk about the scoring, but I think that's often a better choice than just leaving. If you can go to a hide, recover him real quick, make it a big party, and then leave, that's better. Or if he seems to recover as you know where they are, great. Now you've got something.
Yeah. Although I think in some cases, if that's coming up a lot at trial, like I know some teams that ask for info a lot. And so then is the handler really still handling neutrally, or are they just taking the dog from hide to hide in a trial environment?
Well, but if your dog is fearful and that distracted, I don't know that it matters too much.
It may not, but it's not, I don't think it's necessarily working on the problem. It's getting through where you are in the moment. And it may work on some things in the moment. So, if this happens occasionally, I think that's a great option. Or if you decide we're just totally off today and I want to know, it's a great option. And, I also think that you can keep yourself from just handling him from hide to hide. Because I think that's more of the problem. If the dog's not really doing anything and the handler's just taking them to hides and paying them. But I think that if this is something that comes up for someone, not necessarily you, multiple times, then finding the ways to work on it in a practice setting where you can pair or set things up for the dog's success or take bite-sized pieces or something is a better option than going to trial after trial after trial. Again, not directed at you specifically. But yeah, I think if someone's at a trial and things are going south, use it. It's scored as if you were absent from the search.
Yeah.
So that's a 0 score full time and 4 faults. But it doesn't impact any other search.
One other thing that might be worth mentioning is that if your dog is randomly showing this behavior, and normally they're confident and driven and everything else, and your dog is showing this and it's very out of the blue, it might be worth doing some health checks. It might be worth really asking, is there something wrong with my dog, and not some like my dog isn't trying or my dog is behaviorally doing something. You know, are they hurting? Are they in pain? Is the heat gotten to them? What is it? You know, it's worth checking off those things off your list before moving on to a behavioral answer.
Yeah, I took Icy in to get her eyes checked because she did a couple weird avoidant things in trial that were completely out of character for her. And it was her eyes.
Okay. Hi.
Are those from before?
I don't know.
I think
Did you
those
add
are
them?
from before? No. Yes, we talked about that.
Okay,
last
so
time.
that was the last question, technically. If there are any follow-up questions, we'll take them.
Yeah.
Otherwise, when is the next NAMA?
That's a great question. Also, Todd said an hour ago or whenever that was, do another tow yard vehicle event in the fall. That would be great. We just have to figure out when works on everybody's calendar, but it's lots of fun to get to use the tow yard. Okay, so July. Are you in town? No, you're not in town that day. Do you think you'll be free while you're in Pittsburgh?
What am I there
Probably
for?
not. Seminar.
I might be leaving that Monday. I don't know. So possibly, and you don't want to do the 21st,
No.
Okay.
We could do it in 2 weeks.
the 7th? Let's do that.
Okay. July 7th.
July 7th.
So that's not very long from now. So get your questions in if you
Yes.
have any.
It was great seeing you guys. Thank you for tuning in, and
Yes,
we will
thank
see
you.
you next month.